Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. We are here today at the Warwickshire Golf and Country Club. We're playing the King's course at the Warwickshire today. The Warwickshire has 3 courses, 2 sort of 18 holes and 1 9-hole golf courses. We will be playing off the yellow tees today, which will be somewhere in the region of about 6,300 yards. So on to the review then. As normal, we're going to split this into 5 sections. So the first section is going to be the general feeling facilities. I'm going to give this a score of 5 out of 5. This is a really impressive facility. There's a hotel, there's a spa, there's obviously the 3 golf courses. You really are sport for choice, and you have all of the normal amenities that you would expect from a really top class course. So full length driving range, really good practice and warm up area, all the things like I say you're really going to need. For the course difficulty, I've given this a score of 5 out of 5. This is pitched just right. This is a really great test for all levels of golfer, and you are going to need to play every single type of shot to score really well around here. You are going to have to take a few risks on a few holes if you really do want to score low, but again, it's a great course, and if you, like I say, if you're in the middle of the fairway, this is still going to be a really good challenge, and if you're in the rough, it will make it difficult for you. So onto the course layout. Again, I've given this a score of 5 out of 5, and this has a really great mix of holes, lots of different bits of trouble. I like the sort of mounds and the sort of hills that you get around the course. I'd also love the water that you play around sort of 5 or 6 holes around the middle of the course, and obviously the sort of on 17 playing across the water again. It really is just a fantastic layout, and you, like I said earlier, you are going to have to play every single type of shot to score really well around this course. And onto the condition, I have given this a score of 3 out of 5. This was very overplayed, and we did play this in April. You'll see on the video a bit later that a lot of the green boxes were pretty well used. A lot of the fairways, there was lots of divot marks in them. The greens, whilst they were pretty consistent all the way around, there was lots of like sort of averagely repaired pitch marks as well. But I do feel like this is just due to it actually being a great course, and actually lots of people wanting to play the course as well. And onto the value, I've given this a score of 5 out of 5. We paid £45 for the round, and this was on a Saturday afternoon. I think the peak prices are about £55, so even at that sort of prices, I would be more than happy to pay that. This is a really great setup, and for the money, I can't fault the course at all. So this will give the King's course at the Warwickshire a score of 23 out of 25. We will aim to play the Earl's course at some point, so I'll look forward to bringing that review to you shortly. If you have made it this far, please like and comment on the video. Any recommendations would be really appreciated. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Really great to appreciate any support on the YouTube channel and the Instagram channel as well. We will now get into each of the 18 holes and provide a little bit of a strategy just around each of those holes. And if not, I'll speak to you soon. Thanks guys. Hole 1, and a good length par 4. This does have a dog leg to the left. So off the tee, I would recommend just trying to cut the corner off as much as possible. You are going to need around 250 yards to make the fairway if you do take the line over those smaller trees that are in front of you. The safe play, if you can't make that, is just to aim to the right of these trees and aim to play no more than about 230 yards. For your approach to the green, I would play to the middle of the green, as there is a bunker short right, so ideally aim just slightly down the left hand side. There are a few banks at the back of the green, so if you are playing the yardage to the back of the green, you probably will be okay if you do go a bit too long. The green itself is slightly raised on that left hand side, but don't expect too much movement from around this green. Hole 2, and a challenging tee shot for this lengthy par 4. Ideally off the tee, you're going to want to hug the tree that is on the left hand side of the fairway. If you aren't able to play over 250 yards, then I would aim for the bigger set of trees that is in the right hand rough. There's several mounds down the left hand side of the fairway, and you will want to avoid these as much as possible. For your approach to the green, I would play the yardage and aim for the middle of the green. This is quite a generous sized green, and I would avoid missing right to this green, as you will find another big hill. The green itself does slope generally down towards the front of the green, but don't expect too much movement unless you're having to put right on the edges of this green. Hole 3 and a short par 4. Off the tee you're going to want to aim to the left hand side of that tree that is in that right rough in front of you. Ideally you will play no longer than about 210 yards on this line, but you will need to play shorter than 270 yards. If you want to play it safer, then aim a little bit more left, as this will likely leave you a longer shot into the green. For your approach to the green though, I would recommend playing the yardage to the back of the green, as the green is elevated from the fairway, and you are going to want to try and avoid the 2 bunkers that are short to this green. Again, there's banks at the back of this green which should help if anything is slightly overhit. The green itself slopes generally down towards the front of the green, so do expect quite a bit of movement, especially if you are having to put across the green. This also will be really slippy if you are putting downhill. Hole 4 and a great looking par 3 playing from a very elevated tee box. You are going to need to take at least 10 yards off the yardage of this shot. I would recommend taking 1 club less, or just aiming, like I say, 10 yards shorter than you would do normally. Anything long or right will fall down a bank and leave you with a very tough up and down. This green is actually quite a good size and is pretty flat from most angles, so please don't expect any sort of movement from around this green, but pace control is going to be important for minimising the amount of putts that you take. Hole 5 and a long par 4, and as this is stroke index 2, this could almost be played as a very short par 5 from those golfers who have at least 1 shot on this hole. The line off the tee is the building in the distance, and if you don't hit the ball all that far, then I would just aim for that big tree in the right of the buildings. Just pick driver and get you down yourself the fairway as long as possible. This hole does dogleg to the left, so finding the fairway will be really important for getting onto the green in 2 for the longer hitters. If you can't reach the green in 2, then aim yourself just to leave yourself a comfortable yardage, ideally somewhere around sort of 80 yards to the middle of the green, as this will avoid all the bunkers that are down the left hand side of the fairway. If you are going to go for the green in 2, then play at least the yardage for the middle of the green, ideally playing the yardage to the back. Your miss here is that this green is actually down the right hand side. There are a couple of mounds to the right hand side of the green which will leave a pretty tricky up and down. The green itself, it has a gentle slope down towards the front, so you will need to be mindful if you are putting across the green. Hole 6 and the first of 2 back-to-back par 5s. This isn't going to be a par 5 that you can reach in 2, but off the tee, for the longer hitters, you do have the option of trying to take the slight corner off here. If you can't carry over 250 yards, then your best play will be to play somewhere in the region of 200 to 220 yards, aiming for the small tree in the right rough. The tee box is slightly higher than the fairway, so this will add a few yards to your shot, but the main aim here is just to get your board in play. Your second shot will all be about just putting yourself in a position to go for the green. So the safe yardage here will leave you at the widest part of the fairway, aiming to leave yourself about 80 yards from the middle of the green. For your approach to the green, you will be playing to a slightly elevated green, and with 4 bunkers all the way down the right hand side of this green, aim way to the left, as this will be the sort of safe miss. There is a bit of a false front to this green, so play the yardage to at least the middle of the green, if not playing towards the back of the green. The green slopes generally down towards the front and is shaped like an upturned down saucer. You will expect quite a bit of movement, especially if you are having to putt from the edges of the green, and I would ideally leave yourself an uphill putt where possible. Hole 7 and a challenging par 5 again, and certainly one that you're not going to be reaching in 2. The obvious danger to this hole is the water that is playing pretty much the entire length down the right hand side. Off the tee though, you will be at advantage the further down the fairway you are. However, the fairway does narrow down and the water becomes more of a factor the further you go down. I would recommend playing somewhere in the region of 200 to 220 yards, or at least your favourite club, just to get yourself in the fairway. Aiming down the left hand side, just trying to avoid that water. Your second shot is just simply get you over the water, and if you can put yourself in a really good position to go and attack the green. Getting past these bunkers that are down the right hand side will be quite important, and this will leave you no more than about 120 yards into the green. Again, just taking aim down the left hand side, avoiding all the water down the right hand side. For your approach to the green though, I would recommend just playing the yardage to the back of the green, as this will help to avoid the bunkers that are protecting the front and either side of the front of this green. There is plenty of space long, so if anything, this is going to be your miss. Generally, this is a pretty flat green from most angles, but there are a few undulations, so don't expect too much movement around this green. 8 and a stunning par 3 here. As you can see, it plays entirely over water and also plays to a raised green. There is very little room for error around this green, as there's 5 bunkers protecting pretty much the entirety of this green. There's also a path that's down the left hand side, and there is also some of those sort of notorious hills as well. I would recommend playing the yardage to the back of the green, as this will help just to avoid most of the hazards to this hole. Once at this green though, this is a 2-tier green, with the back tier being the highest of the 2. Ideally you will leave yourself an uphill putt, but this obviously will depend where the pin is. Pace control is going to be essential for minimising the amount of putts, especially if you are having to putt downhill. Hole 9, and what will feel like a short par 4 compared to the last 3 holes. Off the tee, the main aim here is just to get clear of those 2 trees that you see on the right hand side of the fairway. This will come at roughly 220 yards. After this point, the hole does dogleg to the right, which goes up towards the green. I would take aim towards the left hand side of the building that is in the distance, aiming to play no more than about 250 yards. Anything past this point and you will just bring a water hazard into play. But again, this is a fairway that begins to narrow after about 200 yards. For your approach to the green, I would take aim towards the left hand side of the green and play the yardage to at least the middle. The green is a 3-tier green, with the back portion of the green being the highest of the 3. There's 2 bunkers short right, and with the water at the front, I would just try and take out this as much of play as possible. Once at the green though, ideally you would leave yourself with an uphill putt, but anything coming downhill you will have to sort of navigate the 3 tiers. Also, do expect some movement if you are having to put across the green due to that slope down towards the front of the green. Hole 10, and a good length par 4. Off the tee though, you are going to want to get yourself down the fairway as far as possible. The trees either side of the fairway do make this hole seem narrower than what it actually is, but just aim straight down the middle and just try and aim for that single tree that is in the distance. Your approach shot will need to play slightly up to a raised green. Again, just trying to aim for that large tree that's in the middle of the green. Best to avoid the bunker that's sat at the front of the green, so I would recommend just playing the yardage to the back of the green, and again just taking aim at the middle. The green generally slopes down towards the front of the green, so do expect a bit of movement if you are having to put across the green, and also again just pace control. This is quite a generous sized green if you do want to look at minimising the amount of putts taken. 11, and a long par 4 with an almost 90-degree dogleg to the right. This hole does come with a bit of risk and reward, but only for the longer hitters might you be able to take the corner on. For the safe play though, I would just take aim at the 2 silver birch trees in the distance and aim to play something no longer than 250 yards off the tee. This will help you get to the turn, and it will also help you to find the widest part of the fairway. For the longer hitters, again, you can just try and take the corner on and just hope that you do get enough to clear the trees that are down the right hand side. This is quite a generous sized green, so for your approach shot, I would just take aim at the middle of the green and also play the yardage to the middle of the green as well. There is 1 bunker that is short right, but this probably won't cause you too much trouble. The green does generally slope down towards the front of this green. It does have a slight small false front. You shouldn't find too much movement around most angles of this green. However, though, if you are having to putt uphill, you are going to have to commit to the putts. Hole 12, and probably one of the longest par 3s I think I've ever had to play. At over 230 yards, you could almost play this as a short par 4. This hole does play quite a bit downhill, so I would recommend playing half a club or maybe even a club less for the yardage. For those that can't reach the green, I would play this as a short par 4. This is stroke index 3, so for most people they're probably going to have at least 1 shot here. I would still play the yardage roughly to the front or the middle of the green if you do want to get clear of the green. The miss here is actually short of this green, and there is a significant slope to the right hand side of this green, and the typical mounds of this course all down the left. The slope of the green generally does go towards the right of this green, so do expect a bit of movement, especially if you're having to put across the green here. Hole 13, and undoubtedly the hardest hole on this course. This is a really great risk and reward hole. Another dog leg to the left this time, and off the tee you have 2 options. You can take aim to the bunkers down the left hand side, try and hug the tree line and try and get yourself into the middle of the fairway. For the shorter hitters, I would just take aim towards the bunkers that are on the right, and this will be the safe option, but this will leave you quite a considerably longer shot in. If you do take the safer options, again you could almost take this as which is a short par 5, and lay it before the green. For your approach to the green though, I would generally just aim towards the middle of the green but play the yardage to the back of the green. This should help to factor in the elevation change of the green and also help to avoid the bunkers that are sat at the front of this green. Another green that slopes down towards the front, so pace control is going to be essential if you are putting down towards the front of the green, and also you are going to expect quite a bit of movement if you are putting across the green as well. Hole 14, and another par 4 that has a slight dogleg, this time to the right though. Off the tee though, you are playing from a raised tee box and it will play entirely downhill all the way to the green. I would aim just to the right of that bunker, just to aim yourself just to try and get as far down that fairway as possible. Ideally playing somewhere around 240 yards off the tee. For your approach to the green, you will also need to try and avoid the bunker that is protecting the front of this green, so play at least the yardage to the middle, and again aiming just to find the middle of this green. You can afford to go a little bit long here, as there are several mounds which may act as a bit of a backstop, but this will leave you a challenging up and down if you are off the green at the back. This green is mostly pretty flat, but it does get a bit more of a graded slope towards the front of the green. I wouldn't expect too much movement from most angles to this green, but again just be mindful of pace, especially if that front is at the pin and if you are having to put downhill. Hole 15, and a short par 4, and off the tee this will actually feel like quite a narrow tee shot, but it is a little bit more forgiving than it does appear off the tee. I would recommend just aiming for the bunker that you see in the distance, and ideally aiming towards the left hand side of it, as there is a slight turn in the fairway down to the left. You will be advantaged the closer you get to this bunker, and for most golfers this probably isn't going to come into range as it is over 280 yards away and does play uphill from the tee shot. For your approach to the green, just hit the heart of the green, and almost irrespective of where the pin is. There are a number of small bunkers protecting the front of this green which you will want to try and avoid. Once at the green though, this is actually quite a generous sized green and it does have very little movement from most angles, so don't expect too much movement here. But pace control is going to be essential due to the size of this green. Hole 16, and a long and windy par 5 here. This hole does play slightly downhill, so it won't play its full yardage. This is also a hole realistically you're not going to reach into. Your main aim here is just to try and get to the first turn in the fairway, aiming for the bunkers in the distance and playing something sensible up to around 220 to 260 yards. Depending on the lie, your second shot for the longer hitters, you could reach the green, but you are going to have to play over 200 yards, aiming towards a small green with water sat at the front and also a massive tree protecting the front of this green. Your second shot ideally would just leave you your favoured yardage into the green and aiming for the second turn in the fairway. For the approach to the green though, you are going to need to take out as much of the trouble as possible, and depending where you're playing from, I would recommend just playing to the opposite side of the water. If the water's to your left as you approach the green, then just play well towards the right just to try and avoid any trouble. The green itself does slope down towards the water that is sat at either the front or the left of the green as you approach it. Do expect quite a bit of movement, especially for the longer putts to this green, as there are a few undulations as well. Hole 17, only a short par 3 but actually a really challenging one. The obvious difficulty here is that you are again playing entirely over water. So to avoid the water, I would just play the yardage to at least the middle of the green and aiming for the middle of the green too. However, this green is also full of trouble. There's 3 bunkers protecting the front of this green, and the green also has 3 tiers. With the back part of the green being the highest of the tiers, again pace control is going to be essential for minimising putts to this green. If you are having to put down the tiers, you are going to have to factor in a bit of movement as you go through the tiers as well. And this will always depend on where the pin is, however your putts will be. And finally hole 18, and this is going to be a fairly lengthy par 5 to finish off with. Off the tee though, your main aim here is just to find the fairway as far down as you possibly can. There is a bit of a hill and a bit of a sort of crest that you'll see in the middle of the fairway, and for the second shot I would just recommend leaving yourself a comfortable yardage to the fairway. This isn't a green again you're going to reach into, mainly due to the water that is sat towards the right of this green, so give yourself a sort of comfortable yardage for that approach into the green. Once you get to the green though, there are 3 bunkers protecting the front of this green, so I would take aim towards the middle and just play the yardage to the middle of the green as well, if anything aiming towards slightly down the left. The green generally slopes down towards the front right of this green. You're probably not going to find too much movement depending on the length of the putt you'll find on this green.